Perfect. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual training session brought to you by the Canadian Professional Sales Association, as well as our course facilitator, Carrie Curterillo, sales coach and managing partner at Results by Design Consultants, Inc. Today's session is dedicated towards growing wallet share, and Carrie will help you understand how to move beyond a supplier relationship and discover how to engage your customer's organization at a higher level and become a strategic partner. In this session, we'll also go over how to grow your wallet share naturally by evolving your traditional partnerships into synergistic relationships. Strategic account management is about navigating your accounts, understanding what your clients value, and knowing when you need to adjust the time and value to invest in those accounts. Carrie Curterillo, CSL, is an experienced instructor, sales coach, and CPSA facilitator. She has spent over 20 years working in business-to-business sales and sales leadership roles. Carrie has led large-scale sales development initiatives to transform sales cultures, which have improved customer experience and sales achievement. Her previous experience includes management training, organizational development, product management, project management, and human capital management consulting. Carrie also holds a Master of Education and maintains her Ontario Certified Teaching designation. Carrie has earned her CSL designation from the CPSA as well. Please note that all of today's attendees have been placed on mute for the duration of the session, and that you may ask questions at the end of the session using the question function in your GoToWebinar dashboard. The session will be recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent to you shortly. Now, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Carrie to start.
Thank you so much, Rupelin, and welcome everyone. Welcome to Growing Wallet Share, a very timely topic. When I think about what does it mean to enable growth within your client relationships, it really is all about the relationship itself. So how are we defining, delivering, demonstrating, and evolving the value that we're providing to our clients through the products, the services we sell, but also the relationship that we have with them. So where are we driving value? And so that's where we're going to focus for this session today. That account, partnership, that strategic partnership that you have with your clients is a source of value. And so let's talk about how are we demonstrating value through the relationships that we are developing with our clients. What are the different levels of value? And how does what your customer, your client wants from you, how does that shape the way that you interact with them? And we'll also talk about some strategies to elevate strategic partnerships within your key accounts, and conclude with looking at some of the 4 key roles that you play as an account manager to drive value within your client relationships. We do want to make this a little bit of an interactive session if we can. So at certain times, even though we are on mute, if there is any questions, don't hesitate to put those into the chat. And I'll certainly be asking for some feedback throughout the session. So definitely use the chat function to respond and to provide clarity, feedback, ask questions as required. Please note that this session is aligned to the CPSA's competency framework. So if you are working towards any of your professional sales designations, the hours that you spend or the hour that you spend with us today will certainly align and help you to gain your professional designation as a result. So if you have any other questions on that, don't hesitate to reach out as well. Okay, here we go. When we first start looking at account relationships, often we can look at the value that we provide to our customers, to our clients, based on the level of relationship that we have. So to determine the level of value that we provide, we need to understand what is the value that we're providing today, and what is it the client requires from us? Do they require us to be at that supply sell level? Are we more at a solution consulting level? Or are we truly at that strategic partner level? And similar to the screen, what you see in the value pyramid, most likely the number of strategic partner clients you have are going to be much less than the number of supply sell clients you have. So the higher we go up in the value pyramid, typically the more complex our relationships with our clients, the more time and effort it takes to manage those relationships, and the more integrated we are within their business overall. And so we'll look at some key criteria that really helps to define the different stages of this value pyramid. So if we are at that supply sell level with our clients, often the value offered really helps the customer to reduce costs, manage one aspect of their business. So we're operating more at a vendor level. Typically, we're working with maybe procurement or one part of their organization, but the real value that we provide is often giving the customer the lowest possible cost, right? So the focus here is cost driven. Value comes by making sure that we can decrease costs and keep budgets in line. That's the value that we provide at that supply sell level. At the solution consult level, often what the customer values is improvements in performance, productivity, profitability. So they're much more driven by the value that our product or service can provide. How are we helping them to improve one aspect of their product or service, or one aspect of something that they need to leverage in order to deliver their capability to their customers? And so the focus can really be on, how are we improving performance? How are we helping to increase productivity? How are we helping to improve their profitability overall? So those are some of the metrics of value that they would be really looking at us to help define at that level. At the strategic partner level, often our businesses become much more integrated and intertwined. This is where sometimes it's hard to know where our client's organization, starts and stops, and where ours, begins and ends, because we really are focused on helping them to shape their business and realize success. We are an integral part of helping them to define their objectives for their organization, and then we're delivering on those objectives because of our partnership. Our relationship is very much tied to their overall success as an organization. And so depending on the types of clients we have, you may have a number of clients at different levels within the value pyramid. First step is to objectively assess where our clients fit today. What type of value are we providing to our clients? What do they value from us? And that will definitely help you to determine where your clients fit within this particular pyramid. A couple of other key criteria to look for, in addition to what's the value that the customer really sort of wants from us, look at where do we have relationships. So typically the number of stakeholders we have with a client will increase when we sort of move up within this pyramid. So the lower number of connections, typically the lower we are within the pyramid itself. The higher number of connections, the more we're sort of infiltrated into different levels within their business and across different divisions or departments. Typically, the more the higher up we are in the value pyramid. And certainly, depending on where we are in that pyramid, we can be much more susceptible to a competitive threat. So if we're at the supply sell level, if there's another organization that comes in with a lower price, we may be easily displaced. When we're at the strategic partner level, it's much more difficult for a competitor to displace us because we're so intertwined and integrated within the organization. The value we provide goes much beyond. It goes beyond the service or capability that we sell. It has to do with the relationship overall. So it's really important as you are looking at the clients, the customers that are currently in your book of business, take that step to evaluate objectively, where do they fit in this pyramid today? What is it that they value from me? How do I know? How have we defined value for this customer? And what's the value that I'm actually providing as a result of what they need? So take a moment to do that assessment of your book, and that can really help you to determine where you should be focused, and what actions you can take to potentially move a client to higher levels within the pyramid itself. Okay, let me pause there and ask a question. Really love to get this feedback from you. When you think about having a client at the supply level, and as we know, that could be, depending on our industry, the type of business we're in, that could be a significant portion of our book of business. What's the risk? What's the risk of having a client simply at that supply level? You guys think? If you could respond in the, I guess, Rupalin, we're getting everyone to respond in the question.
Yep, I'm just going to go ahead and launch the poll, so you'll see it pop up on your
It's
screen.
full.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Go ahead and slot in your response there. So our options
There we
are
go.
price sensitivity is high, very competitive, it's a commodity space, or clients can leave you very quickly.
So I'll just give you a moment to respond to that question.
Perfect.
The risk if a client simply sees you at the supply level today.
You can see half of the group has voted, so maybe we'll give it an extra 30 seconds.
Okay, great, good stuff. Very interested to see these results.
And I'll share the results afterwards and read them out to everyone. So I think we've got our whole group. I'll go ahead and close now.
Okay.
And I'm going to share the results. So we had 53% say clients can leave you very quickly.
Yeah, that's a very astute observation from those who chose that. It absolutely is true. Certainly, if there is a competitor with a better price, a better offering, something that is going to reduce costs for your client, it's very easy to rip and replace someone at the supply level, for sure.
Perfect.
And it looks like others also added in, some comments on other areas. So price sensitivity is high. I actually fully agree with that one as well. I think that's truly, one of the risks that we need to be focused on, because what happens if we're at the supply level? The risk is the client can continue to try to drive down your price year over year, right? I mean, and that's certainly something that will help to increase their overall, to help them to reduce their overall spend, increase sort of their ability to show value, is the ability to continue to drive your price down. And so clients can absolutely leave. They can also stay and make it unprofitable for us. That could certainly be a risk. It is very competitive, and it can certainly turn your service, your product, into a commodity from the customer's point of view, for sure.
We had Darren in the comments mention that it's actually all of the above.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the biggest risk is they can leave you really quickly. I think the others are absolutely risks that we want to be paying attention to. Great work, everybody. Okay, so if there is risk and reward at every level within the value pyramid, how do we determine where we need to be? Because certainly it's not going to be sustainable for us to try to get all of our customers or our clients to be at that strategic partnership level. It just doesn't make good business sense. And, as a lifelong account executive, it's not something that you can sustain, even, in terms of how you're managing your accounts today, how you're managing those relationships. So to objectively determine where each client should be takes time and energy. So we need to be able to take that step back and do the assessment. As I said earlier, first and foremost, identify what's the value that the customer requires today. Where can I add value, or where am I currently adding value today? And certainly part of that assessment is to determine how is the client using my solution, right? Who actually gets value from the solution or service that I provide? How do I know? And so that assessment may also require some discussion and dialogue with the customer to understand kind of the value chain. Where are they getting value from our solution? Who benefits within their organization from what we provide to them? So that assessment is really that first step. Then you really want to determine, okay, if this is what the customer values from me, am I consistently delivering that value? Do they see it? Do they recognize the value that I provide? Is there a different way that I need to be telling that value story in order to make sure that it's well known within the organization? So that may be a second step in order to determine, what this is going to look like for you in terms of your account strategy. The third is perhaps, the most critical is, where do I want to be? Right. So ask yourself that question based on my assessment of my current book. Where do I have opportunity for movement? Do I have the ability to move clients up the value pyramid and why, right? So what's going to help me to drive that change? And certainly, the way we drive that change is by asking ourselves some really critical questions. And so these are things I'd really love you to take into consideration as you're doing that assessment. And certainly there may be opportunity for you to ask these types of questions, perhaps in a different way, with stakeholders within your customer's organization. So first, ask yourself, is the objective to build an environment where every client seeks strategic level value from me? Is that realistic? And so if you've been working on that assumption, maybe we need to take a step back and reassess, right? Are there truly accounts that don't require that strategic level value from me? Am I trying to operate at that level when my customer or my client isn't there? So let's make sure that the amount of effort we're putting into an account is justified based on the value the client wants to get out of working with us. So let's talk about that. Is it realistic? Why or why not? Secondly, ask yourself, when is it realistic to climb, to sort of a strategic partner within the value pyramid? Because timing can be a critical factor. It may not be appropriate when we are renewing a contract with a client to start thinking about how to, demonstrate additional value. It may be at that time appropriate. If they are being really kind of hard on driving a price down, and we're really trying to, kind of keep our price at a certain level, it may be difficult to start talking about additional strategic value. What I would recommend is look for opportunities to climb in the value pyramid based on what's going on within your customer's industry. If there's something that changes within their industry that can impact their business objectives, what the client has to do to deliver value to the customer, that might be a great opportunity to have different levels of discussion and to grow and build the value that we provide to our customer. So look for those industry level opportunities, those things that change, whether it's a change in your client's competitive environment, whether it's a change in maybe a government regulatory issue that changes the way they deliver a solution or service to their customers, or maybe it's a change in their customers themselves. Look for those industry level changes, because that can really help us to determine when to have different levels of conversation. Often what people ask me is, well, Carrie, we've developed a new product, so maybe this is a great time for us to, increase our value or to move up in the value pyramid. Maybe, maybe not. If you do have a new product or service that can drive additional value to your customer that they care about, then find the people within their organization that cares about that and have those conversations. But us just launching a new product to the market doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to provide more value to our customer. So we want to be really mindful of that. Value has to be defined from the customer's point of view. And so looking from the outside in, those industry level events or issues that can help us to drive a deeper, stronger relationship with the client, I find creates stickiness and really does help us to further develop the value versus something from our own perspective. And then sort of lastly, is it ever acceptable to operate at a supply level? Why or why not? You may have some customers operating at that level today, and it may be acceptable to continue to operate at that level for that customer. What I would ask you to do, though, is make sure you are assessing what's the level of support that we are providing to that customer, and does it match the level that they're at? So if you truly have a customer at the supply level who is focused on price, that's ready to jump, to another competitor, to one of your competitors if they get a better price, are we over servicing that account? Are we trying to provide them with multiple sources of support within our organization? Are we, reaching out perhaps too often? And there is potential to over service. So just make sure that our account strategy matches the level of value that the customer is looking to attain from us. And, be objective and make sure as we're assessing our accounts. If there's anything we're too close to, perhaps get some other internal feedback from your leader, from colleagues that work with the account, to really make sure that we are assessing the relationship level accurately. One way to determine the level of value that you're providing to your customer is to assess where we connect with that client. So who are the stakeholders that we're connected to, and how are those connections, how do those connections manifest between us as the supplier and our client? Often when we start with a brand new customer, it looks a little like this, right? It's sort of a traditional partnership where we have one individual within our organization talking to one individual within the client's organization. So let me take a pause here and just ask this question, and please use the chat to respond. What's the potential risk of this traditional partnership, where there's one person within our organization talking to one person or working with one person in the client's organization? What's the risk here? Let me just pause.
Feel free to put your response into the question function. I can read them out loud to Carrie.
Thanks, Rupelin. That would be great. Oops, I'll just open it up too so I can see it as it pops up.
Couple answers here, Carrie. So we've got, if the relationship goes sour, you lose the business altogether, for sure.
Absolutely. So you're right. It could be maybe these two don't get along. So if there's any kind of issues there, then you could lose the client. If one person leaves that relationship for whatever reason, that could put the whole relationship at risk for sure. And so we never want to be dependent on just one person, right? That feels like it's very isolated, and there could be quite a bit of risk in potentially losing that client when we just have that one-to-one relationship. So often it starts this way with a new customer, but it doesn't have to continue. You know, as we grow our connections to a client, we want to grow, who they are connected to within our organization. So over time, we may get to this kind of partnership, an extended partnership. This is where we've got one individual within our business, from the supplier's perspective, dealing with multiple people within the client's organization. Again, risks, rewards. The reward of this partnership is that, as the main point of contact, I get to know a lot about my client's business. I'm working with different people. Often, though, those individuals are all at the same level. And so I've got a nice wide view of the customer, but I might not have a very deep view. And what I mean by that is we may be working with multiple departments: finance, procurement, manufacturing, product management, but we're dealing with a very similar level across those departments. So we really haven't penetrated into higher levels within the organization. We're not having those strategic conversations, perhaps at the senior executive level of the business. So that the reward is multiple points of contact, multiple views of the customer's organization. The risk, we may not be going high enough. And of course, there's always a risk if something happens to that individual within the supplier who has that relationship. If they go, maybe the relationship goes as well, and we're starting from ground zero again. And so certainly we need to be able to assess that level of relationship to determine, is this where we need to be, or is there a different level of relationship that's required? And so often, to combat or to manage or mitigate some of the risks associated with extended partnership, many organizations go this route, where we integrate, where we have multiple people across the supplier working one-on-one with multiple people across the client's organization. Again, risk reward. Multiple connections means we have multiple views into the organization. We get, again, wider across the client's business. We understand more about how they operate. And we also connect them typically with someone within our organization that has a similar role, that speaks a similar language, right? Usually we've got someone in technology connected to somebody managing technology within the client's organization. So, they get along to some extent because they're talking the same language. there are risks here as well. If I can again pause and ask you to respond in the question section, is what are some of the risks of this kind of partnership with your client? What do you think would be one of the main risks? And Rublin, if you don't mind, I'll get you to let me know when responses come up.
Sure thing. We've got message can become convoluted. Click on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the CEO can make a top level decision to change suppliers. There's a lot of misinformation, lack of communication between teams, and if internal communication is not efficient, we can lose the opportunity.
Yeah, guys have nailed it. Absolutely. A couple of really critical risks here. One, we may not be connected high enough up within the client's organization. We've got some great grassroots relationships, but they may not be the individuals ultimately that are making more strategic decisions for the organization. They may be contributing or influencing those decisions, but they may not be the ultimate owner of those objectives. So that may be a risk. And certainly, there is a potential to be very siloed in the way we manage this client. If as a supplier, we don't have our act together to share information, to dialogue, discuss, collaborate, we can absolutely continue to create those silos and not share information. So it almost comes back to like that one-on-one relationship, right? And even more detrimental because we aren't sharing information within the supplier itself. And so again, could be a risk that we have to manage. One way to manage or mitigate the risk of an integrated partnership is to move to more of a synergistic partnership. And certainly if you are looking to become a strategic partner with your client, this can be a very beneficial way to structure how you manage the stakeholders. A synergistic partnership ultimately is all about bringing the two organizations together. And that one point of contact within the supplier becomes a facilitator of those two partnerships. Risk and reward to this as well, for sure. This takes true alignment. So it means we do have to work incredibly hard to ensure we are sharing information across both organizations and that we have a very connected approach so that we're not missing any information or we're not missing any kind of big issues that may occur. So that's really critical. The other is we need to have internal alignment around the value that we provide. So the purpose here is not that no one else ever within the suppliers organization ever talks to the client. By all means, no, right? We want to make additional connections, but that one point of contact becomes the facilitator of those connections, which means that we really have to be thoughtful about who we're aligning to who within the client's organization, when, and how we are managing that alignment moving forward. And so a synergistic partnership is all about really assessing where can we drive value and what connections will create the best value for this client today. And to hopefully highlight this a little bit, I can give you one example that will hopefully kind of shed a light on how do you get there. This doesn't happen by accident for sure. It takes time and energy to get to this level of synergistic partnership. I have a account rep that I've been working with, doing a lot of coaching with over the last couple of years. He's inherited a brand new organization, or he did inherit a brand new client from his organization about 6 months ago. The client is incredibly complex, multiple layers, multiple divisions, multiple hierarchies within the organization. And he was brand new to the account, so he knew no one in this account going in. So he took a very thoughtful and very strategic approach to setting up the right relationships. He didn't want to be knee-jerk. He didn't want to just dive in and try to figure this out in the, sort of as it was happening. He wanted to be more planful. So what he did is he met with his internal team that typically dealt with the client. And he started to assess where they had relationships, who was connected to who, what was the value that they provided, how was that relationship going. So he did that first sort of assessment. He had regular internal meetings with those internal stakeholders before connecting with the client to get a sense of, what do we know about this client today? What are their business objectives? What's the industry issues that are influencing those objectives? What are the key projects that are currently underway? What do they care the most about? And so that outside in approach really helped him to start to gain a better understanding of the customer overall, where they added value today, and he started to see where they could add value. And so, where could there be some potential opportunity for growth within the account? So he had regular internal meetings to have those conversations with his stakeholders within his organization. Then it was time to start meeting with the client. And so again, he took a very thoughtful approach. He prioritized the different divisions within the client's business that he wanted to connect with. And then he created a schedule with his internal team. He leveraged the relationships they had, and he started to figure out what meetings they were going to have when. And these meetings were not to talk about his products. They weren't to talk about his services. They were to talk about the customer's needs, the issues that they were facing, any problems that they currently had, any strategic projects, or critical things that had to happen this year in order for the client to meet their objectives. And so he gathered all that intel and then created his account strategy based on that information, which also meant that not every division within the client's organization were his top priority. There was a few that bubbled up to the surface, ones where they were really focused on changing things within their part of their organization, and he saw opportunity where he could support that change. And so going through a very sort of planful approach to managing his relationship really boded well for him. And 6 months in, he's got multiple stakeholders that he's connected to. He's got multiple stakeholders that other people within his organization are connected to at different levels within the business. And perhaps the best part is he was able to bubble to the surface a number of high value deals that are worth, multi-million-dollar opportunities that he's actively pursuing as a result of the work that he did. And so how do we create these partnerships? We plan for them. We take the time and put that into place. So let's, Rupalin, I think it's time. Let me pause for a moment and ask another question. And perhaps if you could launch this poll as well. Based on what we shared, if you were to describe a partnership as having multiple contacts from both organizations working as a team to drive both businesses, what type of partnership does that sound like? Is it traditional, extended, integrated, or synergistic?
Thanks, Carrie. I've gone ahead and launched the poll, and we'll give it another minute for everybody to respond.
Great, I'll let you share those results, Rupalin, when you get them.
Sure thing. So we had, I'm going to go ahead and close. So we had 50% of the group say synergistic.
50% of the group is absolutely right. That is a synergistic relationship. It's when you have multiple contacts from both organizations working as a team to drive both businesses forward. Why that synergistic versus integrated is because everyone within the organization is driving towards the same goal, right? And I think that's a really key differentiator between the different types of relationships. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you call the partnership. It matters what you do within the partnership. And so I would highly recommend, if you're looking to drive growth within your accounts that you own today, within those relationships, really focus on assessing where are we in the value pyramid, and certainly what type of stakeholder relationship do I have today? Where do we want to be on the value pyramid? And how will I leverage our stakeholder relationships to get us there? The more we can work in a synergistic partnership with our customer, the higher we can climb in the value pyramid. Typically, if we are operating in that synergistic level, we can be much more strategic.
Thanks, Carrie.
That's great, everybody. Okay, and the last area I'd love to focus on, which I think is something we don't talk enough about as account leaders, as account executives, and one that I think we absolutely need to bring to the surface. There is so much that your organization does that drives value for your customer. It could be the product that you sell, the service that you provide, the way you structure the finances around that service, the customer service, so the aftermarket support that you provide. All of those things drive value for your client in different ways, and they will recognize value based on what they need, out of those things that you do. But certainly, one critical area that drives value for the customer is you, right? So the role you play as an account rep, the value that you bring to the customer, is truly going to hit sort of multiple areas. And so let's look at some of the roles that we play with our client that actually does drive value. One of those roles may be as the strategic planner. So in this role, we have a vision. We have a vision as to where we want to get to with our client, right? Account management, sales is not something we do to our customers. It's something we do with them. And so locking arms with your client and having a vision of where you want to go together and how you're going to get there drives value for both organizations. So we want to make sure we understand what that looks like, right? So where are we providing value to our clients today in our role as account reps? We are also potentially really good at being the facilitator, right? Being the one to solve problems, to make things happen, to oversee implementation, to make sure things go smoothly, to connect individuals within our organization in order to solve problems, right? So that role as facilitator is incredibly critical in the client gaining value from our organization. We may also be that trusted ally. Often clients buy because they see value in the product. They stay because they see value in the relationship. So the trusted ally role is really about us building and sustaining trust and credibility with our customer. So how are we managing the relationship? Are we coming from a place of honesty, transparency? When something bad happens, when we screw up, how do we manage that? And are we doing that from a place of just trying to help the customer to solve a problem, to get to where they need to be? Now, that's that trusted ally role. Another way we add value to our customer certainly is as the business analyst and the consultant. So this is where we drive value based on the expertise we have. So are we providing insights into their industry? Are we able to share with them what best practices look like that they could potentially implement within their own organization? That business analyst consultant role is really all about focusing on what's in the best interest for our customer based on what we know, our deep understanding of their business, the industry, and the ecosystem in which they're operating in. And that certainly will drive value for your clients as well. How they determine the value of our role as account rep is something that we may need to assess with them. So are we having conversations with our client about value? Not just the value of our product or service, but the value of the role we play. And often this can happen when we have a brand new customer, or maybe if we're renewing a client and we're looking at that strategic plan for the next year. Have the conversation with around, let's talk about how I can bring you the most value this year. I understand that you've got these really critical projects underway. Let's talk about how I can facilitate those projects with my organization to make sure that they run smoothly. How can I bring you key insights from the industry that will help you to have a different perspective of what's going on in and around your organization? Let's create and move forward with a shared vision of how we're going to work together. And so have those conversations, right? And make sure we are talking about the value that we provide as part of the overall value that our organization provides to the customer. Okay, last question. Let's see how we do with this one. Identify the key account representative role based on the ones that we just went through that truly is about operating in the client's best interests. This is a tough one. Might be a little tough. So if you don't mind, Ripplin, if you could launch that poll.
Sure thing, Carrie. It is
Yeah,
just on the screen there. Let's see.
Wonderful. So based on those different roles, strategic planner, facilitator, trusted ally, or business analyst consultant, which one is truly about operating in the client's best interests? And we'll give a moment, I guess, for responses.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll.
Wonderful. Let's see those results, Rupelin, when you have a minute to put those up. Lovely. So, oh, go ahead, please.
Oh, nothing. I was just going to say we had 63% say trusted ally.
Well, 63%, including some of the other percentages in there, are absolutely right. It's a little bit of a trick question. Every role operates in the client's best interest for sure. So that strategic planner role is about a shared vision. Facilitator role is about facilitating seamless integration or seamless operation between both organizations. Trusted ally is about being that credible source, or that transparent operating sort of for the customer as a representative within their business. And certainly business analyst is all about making sure that we can provide them with expertise and knowledge. So a little bit of a trick question. Here's where this really comes into play, is focus on what is it that your customer values the most about you, and what can you do to strengthen that for them? How can you provide more of it? Is there anything that they value that they're not getting from you today? How can you perhaps change that around, right? And give them more of a particular role. And it will be very different depending on what's going on within the customer's business, what's going on within our own organization. And certainly there may be other factors that will influence which role is going to be of more value for a client at any given time. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and just see if there are any questions. We've covered quite a bit. So we've talked about, that the growing wallet is really all about defining and demonstrating value that your customer cares about. And we have a role to play in assessing that value, determining where clients fit within the value pyramid, and moving forward with the right relationship to drive the right level of value at the right time to grow business and to deepen those relationships within the customer's organization. And certainly as account reps, we play a vital role in providing value to our customers each and every day. So let me pause here. Are there any questions from the group?
Not so far, Carrie, but we do have a few minutes, so please feel free. Oh, there we go. One from Darren. Are there any fast track ways to move up the value pyramid?
Oh, Darren, what a great question. I would love to say yes, there's a secret formula to get you there in 30 days. I don't think that's the case. I honestly think that the way to fast track up the value pyramid is to do a real honest assessment of where you are today and what do you need to do to get there. Often there will be events that present themselves that enable us to move up that value pyramid very quickly. If there is something that happens within your client's organization, something that changes within their industry, some vital issue or concern that pops up that we can help them with, that perhaps can change things very quickly and help us to move up that value pyramid. I think the important part of that, though, is then once that event's over, how do we stay there? How do we stay connected to individuals at a more strategic level? And how do we continue to have those strategic level discussions and dialogue with our customer, over time? Great question.
Got another one here from Mike. Can you provide some concrete methods of identifying a customer that should be moved up the pyramid?
Yeah, I mean, certainly a couple of things that I would be looking for. One is there opportunity for growth? And so is there do we have the opportunity to grow that relationship in any way? If we're working with one division of our client's organization and we know we can grow into other divisions, that might be a key criteria that we would want to focus on. If we're working with the Canadian organization and there's opportunities to work internationally, that may be one of the criteria that we can focus on. Um, any potential for growth, I think, is really critical. And we need to be, again, pretty objective with ourselves, right? Is there actual opportunity for growth? Does the customer see us as more than just one thing? Is there opportunity for them to see us as more than just one thing, or being the supplier of just one thing? If the answer is yes, then let's look at how we can move that forward using the relationships and developing the relationships that we have with our customer.
Thank you, Carrie.
Great
We've got
question.
one here that says, how can we differentiate our value proposition with customers when the competition is on the same level as us?
Oh, such a great question, and certainly one that comes up often. I'm a big believer, and certainly this doesn't have to be the case. You may not agree, and that's okay. But I'm a big believer that there's no such thing as a commodity. And so we may sell something very similar to our competitor. However, there's got to be something in the way we provide that solution that will drive value to the customer. So, how do we differentiate ourselves from our competition is first knowing our customers inside and out, right? Really understanding their business, understanding their business objectives, understanding where they are today and where they need to be and what's getting in the way, understanding what's happening within their industry. So driving those insights is absolutely going to help us to differentiate ourselves from the competition. That knowledge is going to enable us to identify other ways that we can provide value. And I'd also say, another strategy would be look at your solution very holistically. We are more than, the one thing we provide or the one thing we sell. So how do we drive value in not only the product, but the way that we service that product, maybe the way that we structure the financials around that product is, can add value to the customer. The expertise that we have may add value to the customer. Maybe we've got a level of expertise that our competitor doesn't. Our supply chains might add value in different ways that the competitor can't. So really look at your solution, your service, your product, more than just the thing that it is. Look at everything that goes into what you deliver to the customer and really focus on what is it the customer values about what we do today. And often the best way to figure that out is by asking, right? Have a real conversation with your customer about value, right? What is it that you value about what we do? And sometimes they can come back with answers that surprise us, but man, are they powerful, right? They may be able to identify areas of value that we actually didn't even see ourselves.
Thank you, Carrie.
Great
Another
question.
one here. Another good question. Are there any warning bells that we should pay attention to that the customer should be moved down the pyramid?
Oh, great question. I love that one. Any changes in their buying habits? So if you've got a very, a good relationship with a number of different individuals within the customer's business, and all of a sudden there's like this mandate that comes in and says, the only person you can talk to now is procurement. That to me is a red flag, right? That means that maybe our relationship has changed in some way, or the way they're operating and dealing with suppliers has changed. So I would look for those signs. Is there any way or anything that's happening within their business that changes the way they're operating with suppliers? And certainly, what's the profitability of that relationship? Maybe it doesn't make sense for us to be operating at a strategic level based on the amount of revenue and profit that we're gaining from that account. So if we've got a customer that we've been working with for years, but they've been squeezing us and taking more and reducing those fees year over year. We may want to evaluate again, are we giving them too much support for the amount that they're paying? So that may be something that we need to assess as well.
Thank you, Carrie. I think that's it for the questions. You've answered all of them.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we do want to highlight there is some upcoming virtual events. So if you enjoyed this one and you'd like to see more, we've got another webinar coming up February 23rd around building a powerful sales compensation plan. And certainly I know Rupalin, you'll add to this, but there are often other webinars, events that take place that the CPSA will sponsor that hopefully will drive value for you. So I highly recommend taking advantage of these learning opportunities.
Thanks,
Rupal,
Carrie.
anything you want to add? Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
That's right. So for just to hop on top of what Carrie just mentioned on our virtual events, all of our upcoming webinars, our workshops, our virtual training sessions, just like Carrie's today, are available at cpsa.com/calendar. You'll find all of our content listed there, and you can go ahead and sign up with whatever resonates with you. So thank you so much for everybody who's joined today. Carrie, I think you've got one last slide there, just going over.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight yet again that if you are on that path to certification, whether it's to obtain your certified sales associate designation, certified sales professional, or certified sales leader, every learning opportunity, these events will all add to your hours for education that are required to achieve your designation. And if you are interested in learning more about these pathways, don't hesitate to reach out to the CPSA.
Thank you so much, Carrie, and thanks so much to everyone who's joined today's session. Again, if you'd like to visit over to our calendar, please feel free to have a look at all of our virtual events. And again, I'm wishing everybody a great and successful selling day. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a great one, Carrie. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.